Good morning, race fans, and welcome to Estoril in Portugal for qualifying one here of the Hankook 12 Hours of Estoril. It's Peter Mackay here alongside Joe Bradley in the Global Broadcast Centre, ready for our qualifying session. We've got Peter Snowden down in the pits as well, and beautiful Estoril, a circuit that's hosted the Formula One World Championship. It's hosted MotoGP for many years as well, and for the first time the 24H Series make their visit to this circuit just off the Atlantic coast, one of the most westernly points anywhere in Europe. And this morning we're greeted with absolutely perfect weather conditions for racing. Not too warm, dry and clear skies. It's well, it's absolutely perfect, Joe.
Another iconic circuit ticked, I think. Estoril, soaked in history. It's got some pretty strong history, mainly Formula One connected history. The place where Ayrton Senna won his very first Grand Prix back in 1985. The year previous to that, 1984, is where Niki Lauda clinched his third World Championship. It's one of the places, once again, the 24H Series bringing you to circuits that are worth coming to.
Absolutely, and we kicked off all the way back at the end of March in Spa, before heading on to Mugello, and then we were at Monza a few weeks ago. A brilliant visit to the circuit Monza. Today we go to Estoril. We've got 6 hours of racing later on, 12 hours tomorrow. We'll get into the format as we go through the qualifying show, and then in the middle of September we have the 24 hours of Barcelona to close off the European season on the 15th, 16th and 17th of September. That really is the crowning event of this European season. So today we have our qualifying session as normal, where we have 3 qualifying heats and an aggregate time is taken across each car. So weather conditions here today at Estoril, it's absolutely perfect. You could not get better. Dry, sunny, but not too warm. We could see some very good lap times this morning. 18 degrees Celsius in the air. We are very close to the Atlantic coast here, so weather can roll in off the Atlantic. But as far as the forecast goes, Joe, it looks like it's going to be just fine.
There is absolutely zero rain in the forecast that I've seen. 18 degrees. I think we're going to see highs of just over 20, maybe 22, 23 degrees. But like you say, the Atlantic coast keeps the humidity down. It's a very fresh feel. It's a very it's perfect conditions because, as you said, Peter, the track's not going to get overly hot. We're not going to affect tyre degradation. We're not going to overheat the tyres. And we're very quickly going to get underway because we've got a green flag for this qualifying session to get going.
Well, we've got Peter Snowden, who is down in the pits, and let's get down to our main man, Snowy, who's going to tell us what we can expect in this qualifying session.
Thank you, gentlemen. As you've just outlined, absolutely perfect conditions for qualifying this morning. Standard format for the 24-hour series, 24H series. 3 sessions of 15 minutes with a 5-minute gap between each. 1 tyre across the car entirely for that session, so no changing of tyres. And then, of course, we've got to put out your amateur driver first to give us a little bit of theatre to add into that. As we've heard some cars out there, Joe's just said a green flag out already. A couple of cars gone out. One of the Vortexes is out. I'm just standing by one of the Ferraris just right here, the Volkswagen 22 Ferrari 296. That's just having its fresh slicks put onto it. These are, when I say fresh slicks, absolutely fresh. They're not scrubbed. So your amateur driver goes out in that on that tyre. And then there's a 50-minute session, 5-minute gap, and then rotate through your drivers. So I would expect to see some action across the middle of this session. 85, our CP Racing Mercedes just going out. I didn't see what's out in that first. We'll go and look in the pit. It might well be Charles Espinal into that straight away, straight into that car. Charles Potman, my apologies.
Thank you, Snowy. And cars are making their way out onto the circuit now here at Estoril. It's 4.1 kilometres in length, this circuit, and 1 kilometre of that, Joe, is that that front straightaway going down into turn 1. It's a big old braking zone going down into there.
It is. Back in the days before the modification to turn 1, that was a very fast turn 1, the curva 1, as it's called here in Portuguese. They tightened it up though, didn't they? So it's a massively heavy braking point. That's going to really take the over the course of the 12-hour race. Certainly, we're going to see brakes becoming a factor, and when to change those brakes will be definitely a factor. I think a bigger factor, though, the parabolic Ayrton Senna, turn 13 to end the lap. That is a corner that goes through 180 degrees in a very, I don't know what the actual degree, the circumference of the curve is, but it goes on forever. And that's going to load up not just the left front, but the left rear. And we've seen at various other circuits across this season where we've had issues with the left rear on certain cars. If anything's going to expose that issue, it's going to be the parabolic Ayrton Senna, because that corner goes on and on and on and on. And if I say on and on for another 5 minutes, I wouldn't still be there.
We'd still be going round the circuit, wouldn't we? Yeah. And back at Monza, where we did have some of those issues with tyre damages, that the final corner there used to be called the parabolic. It's now the Alboreto curve, but very similar profile.
It will always be the parabolic curve.
You got to get out that. You got to get out that habit, I suppose, a little bit. Yeah. So number 85, CP Racing. What a great, as always, they're such solid performers. They had a great weekend at Monza. Unfortunately, they got a puncture at just the wrong point on the Saturday in the 6.5 hour section, but they really fought back on the Sunday in the 5.5 hour. They got onto the overall podium, and got a win in the AM class. The GT3 AM is a very hotly contested championship at the moment. CP Racing lead, but by just 2 points from E2P Racing, the Spanish team, Joe.
Yeah, it's, we've still got the Barcelona 24 Hours, which is another iconic venue to round off the European season. And the championship, considering, Peter, that the race that we're qualifying for, this qualifying session, a 1 hour session in total time, segregated into 15-minute segments where we use different drivers. We'll go into that in a moment. But it's all about a 6-hour race that's coming up this afternoon. Now, we're calling that a qualifying race. However, if I was down there on the pit wall, I wouldn't be treating that as a qualifying race to form the grid for the 12 hours tomorrow. This is a championship point-scoring 6-hour race. We've got a 6-hour race followed by a 12-hour race, and this is to go for this afternoon. I mean, we've even got podiums where medals will be given out to our podium sitters. So, we're going to address this. The cars at the end of this afternoon or this evening, they're going to be taken back into the garages. It's not like a split race. They are going to be prepped. They are going to be stripped down. They are going to be reserviced for tomorrow's 12 hours. So for today, qualifying now for a 6-hour race. Yeah, you can call it what you like, but it's a 6-hour motor race if I'm stood on that pit wall.
Totally agree. Well, in qualifying, we have the format is as follows. We have 3 qualifying heats where a different driver goes into the car in each of those 3 runs, or that's a better word than heats. 3 qualifying runs, and an aggregate time is taken to decide the grid. Now, in each car we have a balance of drivers. You have full pro drivers, you have amateur drivers, you have semi-pros as well, and usually in this opening qualifying session, that's the AM drivers, as they're referred to.
Usually, it's mandatory.
It is, yes. So if you've got an AM driver in your car, if you have one.
The reason for that is that when you put you're going to use one set of tyres for the 3 15-minute segments. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you bolt those fresh Hankook tyres on, the tyre has got an optimised zone. And it may come on lap 3, it may come on lap 4, but it'll be lap 3, 4 and 5, and then the tyre will plateau and it'll be durable for a race stint. Because there's no difference. We're not using qualifying tyres, these are race tyres, but there will be a moment of optimisation, and if you've got your platinum driver in, your superstar in, that kind of driver can absolutely nail it when he needs to. So to negate that, to take that away, and to give the bronze drivers, the AM drivers, more of a contributory role in this play as it acts out, we've made it a mandatory rule that you have to run your bronze, your AM driver, in this first 15-minute segment, so that your superstar that you're going to bolt in a moment, you probably bolt him in second actually to get what remaining life is in the tyre. So there's a massive amount of tactical sort of news that's got to go on there, and it's not just a case of like who wants to go first, who wants to go second. You've got 3 AM drivers, yeah. Who wants to go first, lads?
Who's still at breakfast?
The thing I love about this qualifying format is that it's not just down to your superstar. At the end of the qualifying session, we're not just going to interview the guy or girl who put the time in. We are going to interview all 3 drivers, because it is a massive, massive team effort, and also a massive shared responsibility of not messing it up.
So Torsten Kratz has just gone to the top of the timesheets for WTM by Rinaldi Racing, the Wochenspiegel car, the Ferrari who came out on top at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in the Pro-Am class and set the overall best lap of the race. That's a 1:38.211 for Torsten Kratz, the 52-year-old German, a 4-time winner in the Nürburgring 24 Hours in class. Then it's Gregory Servet for Haas RT, the Antiguan team. Then it's Alessandro Cotrera for Kessel Racing in the Ferrari 296 GT3. Now, Joe, the balance of performance is something that's commonplace now in sports car racing, particularly in GT3. And the Ferrari, it's been given a bit of a lift here, but that it's going to be a little bit extra turbo boost through the range. And the interesting part is that the WTM by Rinaldi car, that's an AM class car, and the Kessel Racing car is a regular GT3 or a Pro class car, if you like. So actually the Wochenspiegel WTM car has more boost again because it's an AM class car.
Yes, I'll leave that technicality to you. I'll do the race tactics. You do the you do the balance of performance.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah,
now we know our positions there.
But I mean, it does, and it is a factor. And we may hear the teams when we've got Peter Snowden, Snowy, and Nick Damon down in the pits this weekend. And when they'll be, you'll find that when they speak to drivers, they'll talk about this balance of performance. They'll talk about, the cars had reduced boost, or, the balance of performance will either be assisting them or it'll be hindering them. And we'll get all sorts of book of driver excuses being thrown at us.
Well, there's another excuse as well. There's more boost given for the AM class cars in the case of the Ferrari, and indeed any in here in the 24H series, an AM class car will be given a more favourable balance of performance, usually a bit more power normally, but also the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau car is running 30 kilograms lighter than the Kessel car, the Pro car. So those Ferrari, I think this Wochenspiegel car could actually be in for an overall podium, maybe more. We'll get into how much more of a benefit they have in the race as well. But Torsten Kratz has got a great start to the day. He's improved his best time again, 1:37.351. That is 8/10 of a second quicker than Gregory Servet in the Haas RT Audi. Then in third it's Kessel Racing Ferrari. First of the Porsches, Javier Murchio in the Porsche 911 GT3R 991 edition. Then it's Manuela Gosner, former Iron Dame in the MP Racing Mercedes with the family Gosner outing. That's my kind of family outing, Joe. The GT3 Mercedes at Estoril.
You can keep your picnic baskets. The 992 class got 7 Porsches in the 992 class, arguably one of the, if not the most competitive class in the 24-hour series. Sergio Nicolai is the fastest of our 992s at the moment. He's come in, brought the car into the pits. That's the number 955, and that is the Willy Motorsport by EB Motors entry. His time is a 1:54. In fact, no, I missed that on my tiny timing screen. At 1:40.6. Is it 1:40.523? Is his quickest qualifying time. And with this being the first session, the fastest times that we're seeing are pretty much as it stands. It's not until we get into the second and third segments that we start averaging things out and aggregating things. Second in the 992 class, Ayrton Redant in the number 903. That's the Redant Racing car. And then Fabian Dance in the number 909, and that is the Red Camel car. Fabian Dance joining the Breuker family in that number 909. They're currently third. fourth in the 992 class is Jimmy De Broeke, and he's in the 904, which is the other Red Ant Racing entry. So Red Ant in the top, 2 cars in the top 4 already.
Curiously, the Willie Motorsport by Ebby Motors car, they've got an all semi-pro lineup. They do not have any AMs in their lineup, so they've actually put their fastest driver in first.
Who's
so
that, sorry?
Sergio Nicolai,
yes,
Willie
yes.
Willie Motorsport by Ebby Motors.
Sergio.
Sergio.
I remember that. I was told you pronounce it because I was saying
Sergio.
Sergio. It's close to my name.
Sergio. I like it. I like that.
Not that I'm a Sir.
Sergio. Well,
might be in the offing.
So they've thought, let's get the very best out of that new tyre and send out our hot shoe.
Yeah.
They're a brilliant outfit, the Ebby Motors crew. They got on the overall podium in a 991 generation Porsche Cup car at the Sebring 24 Hours a couple of years ago. Amazing performance. And Ayrton Red Ant, I mean, pretty cool. Someone called Ayrton in the field here at Estoril.
Yeah, their dad Bert is a bit of a motorsport fan.
I like that. Yeah, you know that they're offspring of a motorsport family when they call their son Ayrton.
And the other son's called Yannick.
Yeah, brilliant. Is that Yannick Dalmas, I presume?
I don't know.
I wonder. We must ask.
I don't know.
We must ask.
I presume so.
One for Peter Snowden.
Ayrton's an easy one, isn't it? I mean, we've got a corner named after him here.
Yes. Javier Morchillo in the E2P Racing Porsche. Now, their lineup, they have a full AM lineup, but Javier Morchillo is very, very experienced indeed. He's been racing for over 30 years, started racing in Formula Fords. Actually has a lot of success in Brit car endurance, does Javier Morchillo, but he's the team owner of E2P Racing, driving alongside Pablo Burguera and young Antonio Cinero, who impressed a lot at Monza. I love on the back of the car it says "I am speed," and quoting the great Lightning McQueen. I think they need to have Kachow on the front. They've got "I am speed" on the back, so they should have Kachow on the front.
They haven't gone for the full livery, have they?
No.
We're inside the final minute, Peter, already of this first 15-minute segment, so we're pretty close to checkered flag time.
We are.
For our first runs.
Yeah, the top 3 there in the pits, they're happy with their run, not wanting to put any unnecessary laps on the tyres. Remember, it's the same fuel and same tyres all the way through, or the fuel runs down, of course. But Torsten Kratz for Wochenspiegel Team Monschau by Rinaldi Racing, a crew that have had a brilliant year. I mean, Rinaldi Racing ran the 2 winning SP9 cars at the Nürburgring 24 Hours. They ran the Fricadelli car that won the race overall, and they ran the Wochenspiegel car that won in Pro-Am. A brilliant visit to the 24-hour classic there. Gregory Servet for Haas RT in second, and it's Alessandro Cutrera for Kessel Racing, that beautiful number 8 Kessel Ferrari, the Swiss crew. And Alessandro Cutrera, the Ferrari Challenge racer there. Then it's Javier Morchillo, who's going to try and improve at the last moment here, as is Manuela Gosner, the number 58 Mercedes AMG GT3. So she's on a lap at the moment, and yeah, setting a personal best in Sector 1 is Manuela, really pushing on. She used to drive in the Iron Dames alongside Rahel Frey and Michelle Gatting.
She means business.
She does.
Circulating here towards the checkered flag, the bright green and black liveried number 58 Mercedes AMG, flashing lights as she goes around this Estoril circuit, warning the drivers ahead of her that she's still on a bit of a flyer. Currently, just trying to find her in the, currently 5th, and 5th in the GT3 class.
Personal best Sector 2.
Yeah, so she's gone purple in Sector 2, so she is going to improve, and she's chasing down. She's currently on a 1:39.6. She needs to clear about 6/10, go 6/10 quicker to improve on her provisional grid position as she comes around that never-ending parabolic Ayrton Senna, turn 13 here at Estoril, and out onto the start-finish straight, takes the checkered flag, and her time
1:39 flat.
1:39.081.
It was an
not
improvement.
quite enough. 1:39.045 is the time she needed to better of Javier Morchillo. At 1:39.081, not far enough. But a great effort there from Manuela.
That's a mighty good effort. And they're in an AM-class Mercedes. Likewise, Charlie Putman in the number 85 CP Racing, always a front-running car. She's 1.3 seconds quicker than our fellow AM driver. And Javier Morchillo, she's only 0.04 of a second off that. And Javier Morchillo has got a heck of a lot more experience in mileage in motorsports. So that's good stuff from Manuel Acosta. Remember, it is an average across the three,
Yes,
so
of
that
course.
improvement is really important, even though it's not a position change.
And that was a very, very a good contribution.
Yes.
And the thing that impressed me was, I'm going to say she was very Alain Prost-like.
Smooth.
She didn't look like she was being ragged to get that time. She was being, I mean, this place is all about, there's not really the chicane, the Ganshaw chicane, and maybe turn one, the curve of one. That's probably, you know, the trickiest part, the slowest part. But everywhere else, it's a momentum kind of circuit.
It is. It of course ran in the MotoGP Championship for 12 years, and Jorge Lorenzo, he referred to it as complex. I think that's the perfect way to describe this circuit. It's very technical in a lot of places, so it's actually a circuit where the driver really can make the difference in the really technical aspects of the circuit. So already our cars are making their way back into the pit lane. So running through the other classes, we go. So at the moment in GT3, it's WTM by Rinaldi Racing are in the lead. Then it's Haas RT, Kessel Racing in third, E2P Racing in fourth, MP Racing Mercedes are fifth. Then it's CP Racing Mercedes in sixth. Then we've got the 992 Cups, very tightly contested there. The fastest time of Sergio Nicolai, 140.523, a 140.660 for Ayrton Redant. Then Fabian Dance in the Red Camel Jordan's car at 141.319. Then Jimmy De Bruyker for Red Ant Racing. Got two Red Ant cars, a 142.0. Axel Sartigan for HRT Performance car 930, a 142.432. Michael Doppelmayr in the Pro-Am class Sport PHX Audi that won last time out in Monza, 142.6 for Michael. And then it's the Vortex on pole in GTX at the moment, provisionally, a 142.8 for Lionel Amrouche, who is 1.3 seconds ahead of Andreas Butkevicius for RD Sainz Lamborghini. So the times switch over and we're ready to go for session number 2.
Yeah, I really am a big fan of this format. Like
Me
I said, Peter, it's you know, we've got the second drivers in the cars and already making their way out. I'm not quite sure of the location of the fueling area, which we'll come to, probably more important in the race. It's pit out. That's what I'm trying to establish, whether it's pit in or pit out.
Different to Monza.
At the moment, we've now got a queue of cars queuing up at the exit of the pit lane, and that 5-minute break certainly ebbs away very, very quickly indeed. Of course, the 5 minute starts at the checkered flag. We've still got cars coming around and into the pit lane. That's why we think 5 minutes, plenty of time. But that's not 5 minutes after the last car has come into the pits. That's 5 minutes from checkered flag. So the teams have got to be on their toes to turn those cars around. I think the only thing they're allowed to do is maybe adjust the tyre pressure.
We're in sync already, Joe. I was going to ask you, are you allowed to do that? Could you tell from just my look on my face? I'm thinking he's thinking about tyre pressures.
Yes, yeah. So you've got a starting pressure. You've been out. You haven't got a chance to, heat the tyre up, bring it in, and bleed some air out to bring it down to its optimum pressure. So that's the first opportunity you've had when the cars have come in after that first 15-minute segment. You've basically got to let that driver go out. Now you've kind of got the tyre to where you perhaps wanted to have it. It's nice and hot. It's had a good solid run of 15 minutes. Now the driver that you're going to put in the car, this is the driver, or one of the drivers, because you've still got another chance at this as well. So you're going to put now you're into the realms of your silver, gold and platinum drivers.
Interestingly, some of the teams, particularly the front-running cars, WTM by Rinaldi, Haas RT and Kessel, they were kind of done and dusted about 2/3 of the way through the session. Then those cars have been sitting in the pit lane, tyres cooling off, and then they've got to be brought back up again. Or certainly,
what you do, Peter, is you take, when the car stops immediately, that's when you take the pressure. that you never have, so what we call the cool down lap, you never tell your driver, or you shouldn't tell your driver to take it carefully. You've got to come in hard. So
Okay.
you keep the temperature in the tyre. So when it comes to a rest, to rest on the pit apron, the first thing you do is take your tyre pressure there, then bleed it out, because that's your hot pressure. Then bleed it out to where you want to run it to. So maybe you come in at 2 bar, you want to run it at 1.8 bar, so you bleed it out to 1.8. Now it's going to cool off because you've come in, your AM driver has come in on that first 15-minute segment after, say, 8-9 minutes. That's because you don't want to take the life out of the tyre. So you want to give the second and third drivers more of a chance on a tyre that's going to, be able to, stretch that over the 45-minute run.
Well, we've got Peter Snowden down in the pits, who's got this report for us. Snowy.
Yeah, hi, I'm with Philip Bonnell, just got out of the 7-1 Vortex provisional pole in GTX at the moment. You look a bit warm. I think it's quite hot out there.
Yes, I'm a little bit warm. It's very warm this morning. I will this afternoon stay at the same temperature, not more than it.
So 15 minutes is enough out there, is it, in these conditions?
Yes, for qualifying session, yes, that's enough. But tomorrow we are a little bit afraid with the temperature because we don't have AC in the car.
Thank you very much, Snowy, for that pit lane report with the guys down at Vortex. Now, coming back to the tyre discussion, because it's such an important part of this qualifying session, Joe. For MP Racing, Manuela Gosner, she did her hot run at the end of the session. The car's now back out on circuit. Is there any advantage to doing that? Basically, the car's all ready to go. Pop your new driver in and off you go, and you don't need to bring the tyres back up, or do they cool quickly enough that you're going to have to heat them back up anyway?
It all depends on your drivers.
Okay.
You've got drivers that can go out and you can say to a driver, your tyre will be optimised on lap 3, so I need the lap on lap 3.
Okay.
Or lap 4, or whatever. So let's say it's 3. So you go out and they'll put that optimised time in, and you know from that particular driver that car can't go any quicker. He's got the lap time when the tyres are going to give him the best. There are other drivers that you go out and they will pound round and round and round and get quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker as the session goes on. It's your pro drivers really that you can say, give me that. I want the lap time on lap 3. Your amateur drivers, they're the drivers that will get quicker and quicker as they continue to circulate. So you've got to know who you're dealing with really. And again, it's this is Pro-Am racing, isn't it? We're not at the Le Mans 24 hours. This is Pro-Am racing in the very purest sense of those words. And we've got such a mix now for instance, the 21, the Haas RT, that has proved to be one of the main contenders coming in this year. Chris Donker is the man on the pit wall. He's making all of those decisions, and Chris will be looking at his drivers, and he'll know how to use those drivers as effectively as he knows what Castor and Camber he wants on the car. Because it's all a big part. It's all a big part of it. The drivers are just component parts of your race car, really.
I think it was Alan McNish who said you're just the squishy bit behind the steering wheel.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
are interchangeable.
Yes, you are. And you know what epitomises it more than a 3-driver aggregated qualifying session?
It's perfect.
Brilliant.
It's really good, and you've seen other championships actually adopt that system as well over the years as well. So Mathieu Detry for Haas RT. Haas RT go to the top on the average times. Mathieu Detry's best 138.111, but just as I say that, Jochen Krumbach for Wochenspiegel Team Monschau by Rinaldi Racing a 137.5. So the Wochenspiegel crew, they're coming out swinging here at Estoril with their Ferrari 296 GT3. And it's this Ferrari 296 GT3. I get this distinct feeling, Joe, that we're witnessing a new era of GT3 racing. Next year at the Le Mans 24 Hours, we're going to see GT3 cars for the first time. And it's, you can tell the manufacturers are now building cars that are way more advanced than we've ever seen in the GT3 category. These are like, you know, and from what I understand, cost-wise, they're up there with GTE already in terms of cost.
I mean, it's if you've been around motor racing, and especially sports car endurance racing, as long as perhaps I have, you see it as in cycles. If you think about it, you know, the GT concept was a production-based concept, that, and then along came people like Porsche, who brought out the GT1, who kind of made a prototype out of a production-based car, and GT3, which was a category, a formula, if you like, aimed at the amateur driver to be able to go GT racing. If you look at an early GT3 car and look at a GT3 car now, with the kind of aero that you see and the kind of design concepts that you see on these GT, they still are very much production based. However, the racing versions of those production cars are very, very different from their road cars that they are representing. And I mean, when you consider how many GT3 cars are racing across the globe, it's. I mean, you could have plenty of time in our 6-hour race, in our 12-hour race, to debate whether or not we are at saturation point with the choice that you have if you are a GT3 car owner. Where do you race it?
Fair point.
We'll leave that for later.
Yeah, that's
we'll put that out to the collective as well.
Yes, absolutely.
If you've got, you know, budget not an issue. What do you want out of life? Do you want to be competitive? Do you want to race at iconic circuits? Where do you take your GT3? You can have a choice of what car to use, Peter. But right now we're in the middle of a qualifying session. This is perhaps hour 6 of a 12-hour race tomorrow. We'll put that debate to
the Ferrari, one of the other Ferraris of the Kessel Racing team, the Swiss crew, Marco Frezza, has set the best lap of this run, 1:37.501 in the Kessel Racing Ferrari 296. A 1:37.531 was Jochen Krumbach's best. So on the average times at the moment, it's WTM by Rinaldi Racing and their Ferrari who lead. Then it's Haas RT and their Audi second. Then Kessel Racing in third with their Ferrari. Then it's E2P Racing with their Porsche 911 GT3R. Then we move on to CP Racing, Shane Lewis in the Mercedes AMG GT3, stalwarts of the 24H series. Then it's MP Racing, Thomas Goster now has taken over that machine for run number 2. Then we have the Sheriff Sport PHX Audi, Elia Earhart. Tell you what, he is the most super duper of silvers. He drove so well at Monza.
He's not going to be a silver for long, is he? If he continues doing that, I mean.
Now that's another debate for our 12-hour race. We'll set that one up for then. But he's very good.
Shall we have a quick look at the 992 class? It's still a Willie Motorsport by EB Motors car 955. Papi Cosimo at the wheel of that car. Now his time 1:41.1 in comparison to a 1:40.5. That gives an average of a 1:40.8 to put that on the provisional pole for 992. Red Ant Racing now with Yannick Redant at the wheel of the 903. It was what was the name of the driver that was in that car? 903.
Ayrton Redant.
I'll come back to that. So they are second with a 1:41.0 in comparison to the first. I mean, they're still good, just over 4 minutes to go. So that their average is going to come down. They're second. Luc Breukers now at the wheel of the 909. The 909 was first started by Fabian Dance, and Fabian's time of a 1:41.3. Just been beaten there by Luke with a 1:41.1, so nothing in it really. That gives them a very good average of 1:41.2. They are third. Fourth is the Stefano Monaco driven HRT Performance, already calling it a day in this second segment. Into the pits in the 967 HRT Performance car. Philip Hamprecht is in the pits also. He is in the 5th place in 992. Currently in the 907. Then we've got the 904 6th. That's the second of the Red Ant car, and Michael Haverans at the wheel of the 904 into the pit. So yeah, we're seeing again, Peter, that we're not going to stretch these tyres. We're going to save a bit of life in the tyres with what was 4 minutes on the clock. We're now at 3 minutes by the time I've read all that out.
In GTX, the gap has closed in significantly after the Vortex V8 crew went into a bit of a roaring lead. Well, it's come back here in session 2 of this qualifying run, and Nicola Michelon for the RD Sainz team, the 41-year-old Italian in their Lamborghini Super Trofeo, has closed the gap up. The difference in average now is just 0.2 of a second, so it's very close in GTX. In GT4, it's the Bagheera ZM Racing team. Their average a 146 flat, with Atlas BX Motorsport, the winners back in Monza in GT4, a 147.1. So there's a fair gap actually in the GT4 class right now. And then PCR Sport, the Catalan squad, with their Mercedes. It's an all-Mercedes GT4 class. Interestingly, Joe, at Monza, we saw that Mercedes GT4, if you need to service things on it, like change an alternator, change a battery, even brake changes, we saw it not being a very easy car to service, actually.
Well,
a lot of teams coming across that issue.
Production-based cars,
yeah,
perhaps the better representation of a production-based sports car is the GT4 class, where they are, you know, if you book your Mercedes AMG into the Mercedes dealer for a new alternator, it's not going to be given to you back in 10 minutes, is it?
No.
It's in there all day.
Is that by design? Are you saying that's by design? Are you cynical? Is he saying that's by design?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the cars are built road cars are built to last 150,000 miles. You know, more. I mean, I drive a Mercedes that's on 190,000 miles, but I'm hoping to get 500,000. That's now the challenge in my life, by the way.
I like that.
So
that's much more eco-friendly.
you know, the race cars, especially endurance racing cars, epitomised perhaps by the Audi R8. That was, you know, you could change the gearbox in that car in 4 minutes. That was regulated out, but that, you know, we're not designing these cars for endurance racing. We're designing the GT4 production-based cars for the road, aren't we? Fundamentally.
Very good point. Very good point. Well, Peter Snowden is down in the garage of the moment, the WTM by Rinaldi Racing Car, and Peter Snowden, down to you with Jochen Krumbach.
You know, because we have an additional of all times, but yeah, but we are really happy so far. No? We were struggling on the first test day this week, and we had some issues, but we could solve it. And at the end, we could find a good setup where every driver is happy with so far. And yeah, so we'll see. So far, our speed is also good, and we're happy so far.
Well, we know the 296 is a very fast car, but you would say you were struggling, without giving too much inter-team stuff away. What were you struggling with?
We were struggling a little bit with electronic problems, but these were not really big problems, but we could not find the problem at the beginning. But from the point on when we know what was the problem in fact, then it was, let's say, easy to solve. But,
thank you, Snowy. The checkered flag is out then here in qualifying 2 with Wochenspiegel Team Monschau on top in the averages at the moment. A 137.277 is their average. Mathieu Detry, Haas RT, they sit second in the average of 137.8. Marco Freza, 138.0. Kessel Racing, that's their average at the moment. The best time of this session so far did go to Jochen Krumbach with 137.2. Wow, those Ferraris are coming out the blocks hot.
Yes.
Ominous.
Great over 2 15-minute sessions. Different matter altogether, though, in the longer race. You know what? We've got a smaller grid than we perhaps have become acquainted with in the 24-8 series, but what we're lacking quantity, we've still got massive quality. And I tell you what, Peter, looking at that provisional grid there, where to pick who's going to be a front runner, I think we've got an option of about 7 or 8 cars that they would not be out of place if we saw them leading this race, or leading the race this afternoon and then into tomorrow. Some very, very strong teams, so we have got quality. We may not have quantity, but that's not going to detract from what's going to be a very, very competitive 6-hour qualifying race coming up this afternoon. And it's not just about qualifying to form the grid for tomorrow's 12 hours of Estoril. It's a championship point scoring race. So for me, and I'm pretty sure most of those team managers down there and drivers, etc., it's going to be about getting points tomorrow. It's going to be all about getting a good finish and a great idea. Once again, the Creventic organisation who was behind the 24H series, once again mixing it up and giving the teams as an entity, if you like, drivers, engineers, etc., the scope of something different and something to how do you go about that? I'm pretty sure when they saw it on paper, they thought a 6-hour race to form a grid, but then went, hang on a minute, it's more than that. It's more than that.
It's all about the points. It's especially in the the hot championship battles that we've got. In GT3 overall, Haas RT are in third, but Santalok Junior Team and Herberth are not here in first and second, so they've got a great opportunity to leap into the championship lead and really land a punch while the others are not here. In GT3 Pro-Am, well, Scherer Sport PHX, they've got a strong lead in that championship and they can extend that. GT3 AM, well, CP Racing and E2P, there's only 2 points between them, so they can't afford to give any quarter in that battle. Interestingly, CP Racing were in the pre-event tests and practice. CP Racing are working on race pace. They're thinking all about building a car that's going to go, or setting up a car that's going to go well in the long runs through the race. The car is going to, they're going to be putting it through its paces when we get into the into the heat of the day. So quickly running through before we go into qualifying 3. WTM by Rinaldi Racing, they lead on average by 0.6 of a second from Haas RT in their Audi. Then another 0.2 back is Kessel Racing. Then 1.1 seconds back from them is E2P Racing with their Porsche. They lead in, no they don't, our AM leader is leading overall. Then it is CP Racing with an average of 139.4. MP Racing with an average of 139.5. Then it's Scherer Sport PHX. In the 992 class, it's Willie Motorsport by Ebby Motors with the 2 Red Ant Racing cars. 903 Red Ant Racing. Then it's Red Camel Jordans in third, 909. Then the 967 HRT Performance car, RPM Racing, and then Red Ant Racing car 904. Round out your top 6 in 992. Still leading in GTX is the Vortex V8 squad. They have a gap of 0.2 of a second on the averages from the RD Sainz Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo. And GT4, it's Bagheera who hold a 1.1 second advantage over Atlas BX Motorsport, who in turn have a 1.7 second advantage over PCR Sport. Now, we're going to go for our hot shoe drivers getting installed for qualifying 3. The tyres have had, how many laps are we thinking they've had on them now? 10? As many as that?
Well, some cars have certainly got
Maybe
more
8.
laps than others, where we saw them coming in with plenty of time still on the clock, having felt that the time was adequate enough and not wanting to take too much of the life out of the tyre. The tyres are not going to be worn out going into this final 15 minutes as we do go green flag flying at pit exit and cars beginning to come out now. It's not like the tyres are worn out. We've still got a lot of life in those tyres. They're just not at their optimum point of wear. They do have that point of just very, very early on. So we are going to see perhaps, depending on which drivers are out there, we are going to have potentially left our superstars, if you like, for this one. Certainly the 909, the Red Camel Jordan's car. I see Rick Breukers, unarguably Rick being the quicker driver of the 4 in that car. Former Daytona winner, former Sebring winner. He worked in the Lamborghini. He's got a wrist that's full of watches, basically. Another Frederick Vervish in the Haas RT. He's now in the 21. Be prepared to see perhaps some changes. Not quite sure who's in the Rinaldi race, the DW, the Wochenspiel team, Monschau's car.
I think it'll be Leonard Weiss.
Leonard Weiss, yeah. Leonard is a very, very quick young man. However, I'm not sure he's as quick as Vervish. And we're maybe going to see a battle for that provisional pole, becoming pole position, of course, when we get to this checkered flag.
Poor old Frederick Vervees with the CV that he has. He's probably best known in recent memory for being Valentino Rossi's teammate. Bless him. That's and now the BMW guys, they're all getting that same treatment as well. It's like, what's it like to drive with Valentino Rossi? Oh. It is Leonard Weiss who's taken out the WTM Wochenspiegel. It's sponsored by a newspaper, the Wochenspiegel newspaper, which the Weiss family own. That beautifully prepared Rinaldi Racing 296 GT3 Ferrari. The car is actually built, it's a Ferrari design, but it's built by Orica, who make a lot of prototype race cars. And Felipe Lazar told me at the Nürburgring, you know, he says it reminds him of driving an LMP3 car. That's what the chassis feels like.
Oh wow! Really?
He says it's because, I mean, it's just so nimble, so balanced. It is like driving a baby prototype, which does make sense when you think of its construction.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. When you look at the way these cars are put together, and yes, they haven't lost their production base, but certainly there's a lot of prototype thinking going into those cars.
And the whole in an endurance racing scenario, if you've got, say, you know, you might get some damage to the rear of the car, the whole rear section, the exhaust, everything, it just clips off. Pull it off, and then you clip a whole new rear section on, and off you go again. So it's a very serviceable car as well. It proved that. I mean, Fricadelli had a left rear puncture at the Nürburgring, and they just simply took the whole rear section off and put a new one. Oh, spin for the Vortex car 701. So that's Gilles Courtois. Now that's down at, looking at our Dancing Ants map here, I can't see which corner that's at. Now this is down at turn 3, excuse me, the Lamy hairpin.
Curve, is that turn 3? Yes, it is. It's the Lamy hairpin, isn't it?
Yeah. You stand on the brakes down there, and the car's not moving. Red flag.
Downhill entry into that corner. You come out of curve 2, which is a very fast right-hander, and I think we're going to see a lot of place changes at the Lamy hairpin. It's a hairpin. It's a very fast sweeping hairpin. It's not certainly a park it and turn kind of corner, and it's got a downhill entry. And as you come out of Lamy, it goes uphill. We'll be having a look at the circuit layout later on before we go into our 6 hours. Curve of VIP is turn 4, and that again is another 180-degree turn. That brings you onto the back straight, which has a beautiful kink in it, which is that's the iconic view of cars, this string of cars going left and right through the kink down towards the Parabolica interior.
So red flag on the circuit then. The Vortex is sort of, it had been lurching back and forward, but it's come to a total stop now. The cars will come back into pit lane. Clock is stopped with 11 minutes and 33 seconds remaining. So did we see any indicative times? We did actually. Pablo Berguera wasted no time. I got a 1:36.768 on the board for the E2P Racing Porsche. Then who else got a time in there? Corinna Gostner. She got a 1:37 flat in there. Well, saying that Christer Jon's got a 1:30.508, I think that would be mighty impressive if that were possible.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely something not quite right there. So I think there's a few drivers that have maybe taken a shortcut back to the pits, if there is one. I'm not sure. But
the clock has stopped at 11.5 minutes, so we didn't really get a chance for these cars to really start producing what I think the drivers would be happy with. In fact, we've got no times being posted there in the third qualifying, the third segment. So that was perhaps we were just on the verge of seeing some times being posted for the first time in that session when the red flag came out. So everybody peels off into the pits. So once we've got the Vortex running, it's been basically dragged backwards onto the track. He's bump started it, and he's no longer at that Lamy hairpin. It was a harmless spin, wasn't it, Peter? He just, I think, carried too much speed into the corner, and maybe tyres not quite up to temperature, and the rear end just giving up on the little Vortex there, and just having a bit of a harmless 180-degree spin, and then he stalled it. That's what caused the red flag.
It's easy done. Easy done. I mean, the Vortex, it's a very light machine. It's in a tube frame construction, only weighs 950 kilos, but it's got a thumping great 6.2 litre V8. I mean, the engine alone must make up a serious amount of the weight of the car.
It's a tube frame, right?
Tube frame chassis,
Fiberglass body, right? with a huge end. Basically,
It's all engine.
everybody watching and listening, if you can imagine putting a V8 engine in your haversack on your back and then just basically being propelled by it, because that's the sort of power to weight ratio we're looking at here. A very light tube. That thing would be like driving a firework. It will be an absolute rocket ship.
It's got quite a short wheelbase as well, so it's going to be twitchy on the limit as well.
And that's why we see some drivers finding it a very tricky car to drive, and they've gotten their heads around the suspension, they've gotten their heads around the balance, and we see what we've just seen from the 701 very, very rarely these days. It used to be commonplace that we would see a Vortex spinning here, going off there. That's very rare now. They have some strong runs in the 24H series now, and it looks like a bit of a redesign on the front end as well. They've smoothed the lines on that front nose section as it comes into the pits. Now, I'm not aware of any kind of penalty that will be imposed on the 701 for causing the red flag. I know some race series, you can't take any further part in the session. IndyCar comes to mind. If you cause a red flag, I think your lap time's deleted and your session is ended, but certainly not in the 24H series. It's all about getting the cars back out there, isn't it? Even in the race, if you end up in the gravel and have to be recovered, even on a flatbed, if you have to be carried back to the pits on a flatbed, it's all about getting the car back, repairing the car and getting it out there. It's all about getting the cars to the finish of the race. That's the very the essence of endurance racing, isn't it? Hashtag this is endurance.
We're here to be on circuit. We're not here to be. The whole thing is about getting people out on circuit and enjoying it. That's what it's all about.
Those teams are customers to the
exactly.
racing.
Yeah. Well, Gilles Coulthard, he's already up there in the King of Cool category with Ivo Breukers with the open face helmet. So if you think about it, Gilles Coulthard, Ivo Breukers, and Klaus Ablin, all open face helmet. It's all about that. It's very cool.
Yes,
I think open face helmet is very cool indeed.
Yeah.
So back to green flag again. That did not take long at all, and straight into the qualifying session. 10 minutes. This is going to be a quick, fast dash. Leonard Weiss is in the Rinaldi racing car. They're in P1 at the moment. Frederick Vervisch in the Haas RT Audi. So you've got a factory Audi driver in there. David Fumanelli for Kessel Racing. Their pro is there in third. Then in E2P Racing is Pablo Borguera. Charles Espenlaub, the man who's often trusted to start the CP Racing car. He's their, I would say he's their hot shoe. Corin Agoster in the MP Racing Mercedes. Christer Jons in the Sheriff Sport PHX. Interestingly, Sheriff Sport PHX not using Pierre Caffer. That's interesting. Pierre Caffer was a superstar at Monza, just so fast. And critical to them getting the win last time out. It's Sabino De Castro for Woodley Motorsport by Ebby Motors. We wish Fabrizio Broggi all the best, and unfortunately an injury from a crash at Monza. He just rested up at the moment, but we wish him well. Kobe De Bruyker for Red Ant Racing. Rick Breukers will be in the Red Camel Jordan's car. Nicholas Sturzinger for HRT Performance 967. Niklas Jonsson in RPM Racing. Now, Niklas has got a reasonable amount of experience here in sports cars at the circuit. Not many. What I mean is,
I know Nick Johnson's got a lot of experience.
That's an understatement, yeah.
But at Estoril.
At Estoril specifically, there is not actually that many drivers in the entry list who have got experience of the circuit.
Right.
But Nick Jonsson is one who does. The ELMS came here, the last time they came here was 2016, and Nick Jonsson was in that race. So,
of course, that's one for Nick and Snowy, isn't it? To find out who's done it and who's not. What their thoughts of the track are. It's an iconic place to come to, Estoril in Portugal, home of the Portuguese Grand Prix, and of course things like the ELMS, and it's got not so much of an equal sports car endurance racing heritage. It's all, I think the history is embedded in the world of Formula One, isn't it?
And MotoGP also.
Yeah, and MotoGP here, yes.
Near our commentary position, there's a brilliant mural of the photo finish between Tony Elias and Valentino Rossi in 2006, which ultimately decided the championship, and Nicky Hayden became world champion that year instead of Valentino Rossi, who was really the dominant force at the time. So yeah, there's been some iconic moments in motorcycle racing here too. So underway then, and already the purple sectors are lighting up the timing screen. And Frederick Vervees has gone purple in Sector 1. He's gone purple in Sector 2. So the mighty Belgian for Haas RT is looking very strong at the moment. And then that actually Christer Jons is taking over that purple sector in Sector 1. So Christer Jons in the Audi going well here, Joe.
Yeah, be aware, currently running in second place. Now third, as up to the top of the screens has gone David Fuminelli, who has now gone down to third, as Lennard Weiss has gone to the top of the screen there. This is all changing as we look at the screen, all changing. Lennard Weiss back to the top with an aggregate time of a 1:37.5 after that last lap time there of a 1:30.124. He's got the better average. He hasn't got the quickest lap time. The quickest lap time has actually gone to Frederick Vervees, who still remains in that second place. We had a bit of movement, but it's now settled back into where it was. Frederick Vervees in the Haas RT Audi, 1:37.4.
Fastest time of the day.
Fastest time of the day. Stays purple. David Fuminelli not that far behind, 1:37.6 for Fuminelli in the Kessel Ferrari, and that will remain third. Up into fourth has gone Charles Espinlaub, and that's the quickest time we've seen from that car there, 1:39.033. That's given that car an average. Look how close they are. 1:39.2 is the average, 1:39.0 is the time from Espinlaub, and I think with Shane Lewis in the car second, a 1:38.5. That's put them right up the grid.
Yeah, so that's right. It was Shane Lewis in second. Now, excuse me, the fastest lap time of the day is actually Jochen Krumbach, the AM driver, in qualifying 2 at 1:37.2. That shows you A, how fast that Watkins-Fiegel Ferrari is, but also the tyre as well. Are the tyres now starting to step over their absolute 100% optimum? Are we now at that tipping point? Because, you know,
what we're seeing there, Pete, in my opinion, is pure driving. It's the driver that's getting it.
Oh, speaking of, David Fuminelli, 1:36.8. Well, that blows everything out of the water.
Stand by. This is what happened before. I was looking at it. Fuminelli went to the top. Fuminelli's now gone ahead of Vervees. We wait a few seconds for the number 22 Ferrari to complete his lap. He's through, right? So that hasn't worked. So last time through, 1:37.5. We've got a 1:36.8 from Fuminelli. That's the quickest time we've seen all day. Vervees, a 1:37.475. So he's in the 37.4s, Vervees, and he's not been able to do anything about now dropping down to third, and Fuminelli in the Kessel Ferrari. We've got Ferrari 1-2, Ferrari 296, 1-2, top of the timing screens and the front row of the provisional grid so far.
Well, and the Ferrari 296 GT3, its first race in 24H series competition was last time out at Monza, and since then they've had a change in the balance of performance. The turbo boost pressure has been increased throughout the rev range, and that is clearly making a difference. Also, the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau car, being an AM class car, it has a more favourable balance of performance. It's got more turbo boost again over an equivalent pro car and runs 30 kilograms lighter.
I'll just give an update as we go towards, what is it? We're inside of the final 5 minutes of qualifying for this weekend, and we've got the 992 class looking like it is the property of the Willy Motorsport by EB Motors car, the 955 on the provisional pole. It's splitting the GT3 three cars up. Karina Gosner is in the MP Racing Mercedes just behind them, 8th overall, but the 992 class leader so far, Sabino De Castro, a 1:40.884. That's the fastest time from that car. Second in 992 is Kobe De Boyka, the Red Ant Racing car 903. That's the I think they'll agree with me, the quicker of the Red Ant cars. That car just putting in a 1:41.334. These cars going faster and faster every lap. Rick Breukers in the red camel car, he's currently third, and then we've got Brent Verheyen in the other Red Ant car, the 904. That's fourth in 992.
So Leonard Weiss continues on the run, and things now these tyres are, you know, they're going out the back of the truck after this, so you don't have another driver getting in. This is last chance saloon, so you might as well run to the flag and see what you can come up with. There's still lots of personal best and best sectors going in at the moment. The number one car of Christer Jons for Sport PHX has gone purple in the first 2 sectors. The 35-year-old German, the Bathurst 12-hour winner many years ago. What can Christer Jons do over the line? 138.332. Kind of went away quite a bit in the final sector actually there for Christer Jons. And oh, traffic for Christer Jons coming through turn 1 with the E2P Porsche, and that scrubbed that lap. So Christer Jons, he will get time to put another one in if he wishes. 3 minutes left on the clocker, lap time of 1:37 at the moment. So Christer Jons, this won't be a pole-setting lap, but he definitely does have pace in that car to deploy the Sport PHX Audi. So any more for any more, as they say. Frederik Vervies has improved his best lap time significantly by 4/10 of a second to 1:37.2, and it looks like Frederik Vervies is pushing very, very hard, but it's not really much answer for the pace of these Ferraris at the moment. That being said, I've never underestimate Frederik Vervies. He's just gone purple again in sector 1. So when we pondered whether the tyres were past their best, no way. Frederik Vervies says, I can get more out of these. Watch this.
That's driver. That's
it is.
A driver.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's when you see a factory driver, someone who's entrusted by a massive manufacturer like Audi with such a great motorsport presence. If you are quite literally employed by them to go fast and be deployed around the world to help customer teams, that's why that's showing exactly why.
That's why.
Yeah. So she's sector 2.
Team together. That's why he's got Frederik Vervies in there.
Yeah.
Remember as well, these are not qualifying tyres. These are Hankook racing tyres. Tyres that are created to last across a stint. You know, a 2-hour stint potentially. So they are a very durable tyre.
So it looks like Frederik Vervies might just get round the Ayrton Senna Parabolica without too much fuss from traffic. Coming around now towards the line. He's got a purple in sector 1, absolute best in sector 1, personal best in sector 2. In fact, he's going to get a bit of a draft from a GT4 car. This could be a very good lap here from Frederik Vervies, and it is. He's gone into the 36s, 136.985, and Vervies goes up into second.
And we've got a 1-2 battle there actually on track, because that's the provisional pole sitter, the Ferrari, ahead now of the number 21 Haas RT, and they're going to pull each other round, aren't they? Leonard Weiss and the VT and the Wochenspiegel team, Monschau car, Ferrari just going through the Lamy hairpin now. They'll come slightly uphill to a left-hand hairpin now. The curve of VIP is where they are on track now. They'll come out of there, and this is where Vervies will want to get underneath the rear wing, if he can, of the Ferrari. Uses all the curb on the exit, maximises his exit. He can't catch the Ferrari. No. Weiss is away through the kink and heading down to the left-hand hairpin, the Parabolica interior now, just turning into that corner now. And this has got a bit of a downhill sweep to it. And as they come out, it's now back uphill towards Orella, which is not quite a hairpin, but it's quite a tight right-hander. And very quickly from that part of the track, they're into the Gancho chicane. This is a very tight, quite a Mickey Mouse kind of chicane. It's a right hairpin left, followed by a very tight hairpin right, to bring you back out onto a short blast towards a left-hander that leads into that daunting Parabolica Ayrton Senna that will finish the lap, and the Ferrari is edging away as it does from the Haas RT Audi, and that was important, because what Leonard was aware of was he did not want to drag that Haas RT Audi around with him and benefit the Audi's lap time by giving him a lovely slipstream, and he hasn't. They've crossed the line now, checkered flag out. That's qualifying over. How's it looking, Peter? So Vervies, by the way, went into the pits.
He did. He went away in the first sector. Yeah. He was 4/10 off of Weiss in sector 1, and so what it means then is that Wochenspiegel, Team Monschau, Ferrari are your pole sitters overall and your pole sitters in AM. Fantastic stuff from the German squad, run by the Italian Rinaldi Racing crew. 137.359 is their average. They qualify on pole by 0.2 of a second on the averages. A great performance from Frederik Vervies in that qualifying 3 there as well. Brings Haas RT up onto the front row of the grid with their average of 137.582. David Formanelli for Kessel Racing They get up into third at 137.650. CP Racing, they come over the checkered flag line in fourth, 139.0. Sheriff Sport PHX in fifth, 139.3. Pablo Berguera for E2P Racing, their average is a 140.2. So that's your top six in GT3. Sabino De Castro, Willie Motorsport by Ebby Motors. They had a challenging weekend at Monza. That's the way to bounce back. So the Italian-Romanian squad, they go up into the lead of 992. Second in 992 is the Red Camel Jordan's crew, Rick Breukers. Wow, pulling out a 140.2 in a cup car. Wow, that's pushing. That's pushing on there for Rick Breukers. 0.7 of a second below the team's average. That's wow. Kobe De Bruyker for Red Ant Racing there in 10th overall and third in class. Nicholas Jonsson was top of the shop in the 992 AM category for RPM Racing. Then it was HRT Performance second in AM in 992. Red Ant Racing car 904 is in sixth. And a change in GTX in that last qualifying session. GTX changes around, so Polius Paskevesius goes into the lead for RD Science Silai Racing Team with their Lamborghini. Their average ends up 1.4 seconds ahead of the Vortex V8 crew. In GT4, well, it's Bagheera who are on pole in GT4. Brilliant stuff from the legendary truck racing and Dakar team. 145.9 is their best. Jong Young Kim for Atlas BX Motorsport, they're second with a 146.8 average. And PCR Sport, the Catalan squad with their Mercedes, Jose Nunez was third with a 148.7 on the team average. Well, interesting qualifying session there as well. And down in the pits, we have Peter Snowden. And Snowy, what did you make of that qualifying session there?
Vice has just gone to take his lid off. In fact, he's just coming back out of the inner sanctum at the very back, and he's very kindly come and agreed to do an interview with us. Leonard, pole position, simple as that, nothing else to say.
Yeah, really good. Car felt really good. Thorsten and Jochen did a really good job in the first two qualifying sessions, and yeah, just tried my best to bring it home on pole position.
You make it all sound so very, very simple. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, track is now getting really hot, I feel, and starting to struggle a little bit with the grip. But yeah, it was all good.
You say starting to struggle to the tyres? I mean, they've only done 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but I think with all the heat cycles they are getting now in the qualifying, it's yeah, just a little bit hot.
And I'm guessing also three different drivers, three different techniques of driving that on the same tyre. Quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It also has an effect on the tyre, which yeah.
Yeah, but you're still smiling because you're still on pole.
Yeah. So really good qualifying. Let's see what we can do in the qualifying race later on, and yeah, let's hope for a clean race.
Now, apart from the obvious answer, thoughts for the race?
Let's see. I think tomorrow will be the big one with the 12-hour, but we will try to have a good race today and yeah, stay on pole position, we hope, and yeah, have a clean race.
I mean, tomorrow is the big one, but of course the 6-hour race latest does count for points as well. So how do you accommodate that as a driver, thinking I've got 6 hours today and 12 tomorrow?
I mean, we don't drive the whole championship, so we don't really care for the points, but we try to get the trophy, try to get a win today and tomorrow, and let's see what we can do.
Sounds like fun in a Ferrari. Leonard, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Great. I think that was a great drive. Great drive.
That was a superb qualifying session. Let's have a look at the highlights for this qualifying run. 3 15-minute sessions with WTM by Rinaldi Racing coming out on top. Let's take a look at what the highlights were from this session. Position. So qualifying is done. As we will be back at 1 o'clock local time for our 6-hour qualifying race here at Estoril. Do be sure to join us there, and we'll see you at 1 o'clock. Goodbye.